And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wanks at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, in an interview with Channel 35, Katie Young-Yaroslavsky of the LA City Council and Metro Board of Directors admits there's a crime problem on the buses and trains, but says there's a solution.
But if you don't feel safe getting on that subway car or going down those stairs into the station, it doesn't matter. So we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars to create a really robust, multi-layered public safety approach at Metro. So we have ambassadors who are unarmed and really just help people find their way around. There's a presence.
What?
You know, those unarmed ambassadors, they're going to keep us safe.
You know, it used to be that nepotism worked if you had a famous name because your parent was a famous person who did something remarkable. But now I guess you can just marry into nepotism, which is what she did.
Yeah, just really go all in on that last name, and it'll get you enough people to pay attention to win a local city election where 90% of people don't even vote.
The people of LA are just checked out.
Are you saying voter base is dummy?
If the cashier is dummy.
Pretty much. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. There was a piece that dropped in Axios this morning about the president and the White House. We know that Joe likes ice cream, chocolate chip to be specific. We know that he likes to wear aviator glasses, and we know that he likes to get real whispery when he's talking in public as if he's a sober Richard Dawson.
What in the hell's the matter with us?
But apparently, behind closed doors, Joe has a real potty mouth. Andrew Dice Biden loves to drop the F-bomb right and left.
Well, he is from Philly.
And he's not a casual swearer, because there are people who like to swear casually, and it's not an aggressive form of swearing. For example, if I were to say, Randy, will you please hand me my effing coffee? That's not me being aggressive towards you. That's just me being a casual swearer.
Well, you and I got to get it all out of our system before we go on the air, because 21 hours a day, we're doing nothing but saying the F word.
That's right. And the only people who get to use that word on this program is Larry Elder. Only person, I should say.
That is true. Download Friday's podcast if you missed it.
But if I were to say, effing Randy, give me that coffee, that would be more of an aggressive way of swearing, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I know that my first program director called me a fat F once. Thanks, Jack Silver.
That's kind of how Joe swears, according to this report in Axios. Behind closed doors, Biden has such a quick trigger temper that some aides try to avoid being alone with him. Some take a colleague almost as a shield against a solo blast. The president's admonitions include, God bleep it, how the F don't you know this? Here's another one, Randy. Don't effing BS me. And get the F out of here, according to current and former Biden aides who have witnessed and been on the receiving end of such outbursts.
All kidding aside.
Jeff Connaughton, a former Biden campaign and Senate aide who was chief of staff to Kaufman, who was another aide when he filled Biden's seat in the Senate, wrote about Biden's temper in his 2012 book on Washington corruption called, quote, The Payoff, Why Wall Street Wins. Connaughton wrote that as a senator, Biden was, quote, an egomaniacal autocrat determined to manage his staff through fear, end quote. He told of a time during the 2008 presidential campaign when a 23-year-old fundraising staffer got into the car with Biden. Quote, okay, Senator, time to do fundraising calls, the aide said. Biden responded by looking at him and snapping, get the F out of the car, end quote. Connaughton told Axios that Biden, quote, hides his sharper edge to promote his folksy Uncle Joe image, which is why, when flashes of anger break through, it seems to be so out of public character, end quote. Joining us to talk about this and much, much more is the host of the Evil Thoughts podcast, which you can download wherever you download your favorite podcasts, and find him online at joecrummey.com and follow him on Twitter at Joe Crummey. Joe Crummey, welcome.
You know, you're beginning to make me like Joe Biden more. And I think, I'm going, hey, all right, this guy sounds like one of us. I know the conventional wisdom is like what, that maybe the lefty media is turning on him. Is that the gist of the Axios concept here? Is like, why is this information coming out?
No, I don't think it's that at all. I think what they're doing is they're trying to make it seem like he is more with it than what we assume.
That's exactly where I was going. You beat me to it. I think they're trying to show you, especially after watching him on the beach over the weekend. It was just like, damn, I don't know if this guy's going to make it. I think they want you to think he's got, he's really a barn burner. He's really got a lot of energy. You know how he likes to run around and do a little kind of jig, when he gets up on stage and stuff. I think that's what they're trying to do, show you that he's tough. See? Yeah, I can't fool John Phillips. That's exactly right.
Apparently, what he likes to do is he likes to prove that he knows more about the subject than you do. So what he does is he asks you a bunch of questions about the subject. And when you finally get to a question where you don't know the answer, that's when he starts cursing at you.
That's great. Well, I would ask Joe Biden, give me 2 minutes on what makes the United States special. I bet you $50 he wouldn't be able to go 2 minutes. I'm just saying. I mean, every time I bring this up on the show, every July 4th, if I were the president, I would give a pep talk every July 4th. And all I get out of the president is a bunch of platitudes and stuff like that. So I would challenge him. I would go, okay, give me 2 minutes on the USA. Go. And you'd probably hear an F-bomb right up front.
Now, did he ever occur to you as a cursor? Because cursors, generally speaking, have the same disposition. I can spot a cursor. I never saw him as a cursor.
Remember when he got in the fight with that hard hat guy? I forget what it was about, but it was on the campaign trail. And he's the kind of guy that puts his finger in your chest and raises his voice and gets kind of angry. Yeah, I could see him dropping F. I could easily see him dropping F-bombs. And I think you're right. I think they're trying to show you he's a tough guy. And there's a lot of, there may be, snow on the roof, but the fire's still burning. And that, behind the scenes, when the rubber meets the road, Joe Biden is kicking butt. And they just want everybody to know that. And I don't think that I thought was suggested was this shows you the media is turning on Joe Biden. I agree with you. I don't think so at all. I think they're trying to show you that he's still there and he's still got it. So, even if he falls over at the beach or falls down another flight of stairs, he'll be swearing as he goes.
Get out of my effing way. Now, what's interesting...
Damn stairs! Yeah, he'll be doing that.
This could play one of two ways. Because you talk to people who've dealt with loved ones who have suffered from dementia, and one of the through lines that you hear all the time is sometimes at the end they get mean. They start sundowning, they're confused, and because they're confused and they're sundowning, they lash out in anger and start yelling at people and swearing at people for no reason.
Yeah, get off my lawn. Yeah, I know. It could be him. It easily could be Joe Biden. I mean, you can see, where is he today? He's in London today, and he's with King Charles, and they're going to be talking about, climate change. And he got lost again up there. King Charles is trying to pull him away from the guys with the big fuzzy hats, and Biden is kind of lost and doesn't know which way to go for a while. That happens at just about every single event that he is at. And it may be that I think it's clear he's lost a couple of steps. There's no question about that. What scares me, though, is not that he's lost a few steps. It's his policies that drive me out of my mind. I don't care if he was 900 years old. What's a little Alzheimer's? If your head's in the right place. But it's his policies that bother me. But but that's me. I digress.
The last time he was there, didn't the tabloids report that he passed gas in front of Camilla?
Oh, there was something like that. Well, where was he where he had to change his underwear, too? That was weird, too. Was that the same time?
No, that was a different situation. He had to change his underwear at the Vatican.
Yes, that's exactly right. And then it was George Bush Sr. that threw up on the Japanese guy.
Yes.
Yeah, we got to keep all these bodily functions clear. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was a thing about him and Kamala, or whatever her name is. Yeah, there was a thing about that. Camilla, right. There was a thing about that. There was a thing about the Pope in the Vatican, and then the George Bush Sr. thing is a different thing. There was that, too, as well.
All right, let's get to the cocaine, because we still don't know who the cocaine belonged to at the White House. This is a story that is no longer a news story. It has changed about 5 times since when we first heard about it. It seems like when they want to figure things out, they can figure them out very quickly. But this is like the Supreme Court leaker. For whatever reason, they don't want to find out who the cocaine belonged to, and we still don't know.
Right, and I think that speaks volumes, too. You know, they asked the presidential spokesperson, Kareem Jean-Pierre. This is really funny. Well, first of all, before I even get to what she said, it's really funny because we don't really know whether it was Hunter or not, but it's so funny because you could just hear this collective, coke found in the White House. There's just this echo, Hunter, all around the United States. But we don't know that. But Kareem Jean-Pierre was asked about it. They say, if you guys find out, who brought the blow into the White House, are you going to prosecute? And she wasn't too sure if they wanted to prosecute, because they weren't too sure, who brought it in. If it's one of their own, okay, that's one thing. But she wasn't too sure. It's like asking somebody, if you find out who murdered that guy, do you think they ought to face, some justice? I don't know yet. Not too sure. They brought in, there was a bag of white, whatever, turned out to be blow, but they had to evacuate. They weren't even sure what it was. And she's not even too sure whether they want to prosecute. That was pretty funny. I think that speaks volumes.
We had a caller who called in who suggested that it could have been Gavin Newsom planting coke on Grampy Joe.
That is, yes, it could have been. It could have been. It could have been somebody just planting blow, knowing that, Hunter was in the White House and saying, well, why don't we plant some blow in there? That'd be really funny. It could be that. I think, what's the phrase, Occam's razor? They usually say the simplest explanation is usually the one, which would be Hunter, but we don't really know that. It could have been a staff member. Dan Bongino says nobody can get blow past the security, and the only people that don't have to go through security are the family members. That's what he says. I don't know. But I can tell you right now, if they don't want you to know, you're right up there with that Supreme Court leak last year on the Dobbs thing, or with Jeffrey Epstein's client list. If they don't want you to know, you're not going to know. It'll be one of those things. You're never going to know.
If it was just some rando, if it was a third grader who was taking a tour of the White House, how is it that when you go through Burbank Airport, they have the TSA, they have the drug-sniffing dogs, they have every security procedure that you always see at the airport that's always there every time you go to the airport? Why is it that Burbank Airport has better security than the White House?
There you go. I mean, that's the thing. And it may be then that there's some credence to the theory that it wasn't anybody that went through the security. It would be people that were exempt from the security. And also the other thing, too, that isn't it weird, because you mentioned this a few minutes ago on the blow thing, that in the beginning they found it in a fairly private area of the White House, and then each time they moved it to another location would have been where there were more public people there. They kept moving toward where they could kind of blame it on the public in general. But, I mean, if that's really true, how would you get it past security? Who'd be, that's weird. And then people will say that, okay, let's pretend it's Hunter for 5 seconds. People say, wouldn't that be colossally stupid to bring that in? But then again, I'm thinking, well, if you're an addict, you got to have it. And, of course, he did a lot of other stupid stuff, too. So, he left his laptop someplace. He left his blow someplace. Didn't his sister leave her diary someplace? Biden's a very forgetful people.
He's like Robert Blake leaving his gun in the restaurant.
Yeah, that's just a couple of blocks from my house. My kid bumped into Robert Blake when he was on trial, and he looked out of his freaking mind, man. He looked like he was speaking of drugs. I bumped into Robert Blake in the Toluca Park there, right on the other side of the Telos, where he'd thrown the gun into the dumpster. There was a house that was this is my hood. I know this. And they were rehabbing and doing a house there on the flats. And there was a big dumpster out in front. I remember it. He threw the gun in there. And he was out walking around during this trial, and he looked like he was really high on something. He bumped right into my kidney. And I didn't think, oh, God, that is really wacky. Yeah.
You know what happened to him after he got off?
Well, why you're going to tell him? I know that he sort of ended up being like a recluse, and he sold that weird house he used to have in the flats called Matahari Ranch. I remember that. And he moved into some little apartment. And then what do you know? I know that he recently pass. I think he did. He did. But at some point in between, he lived in Malibu, and he lived with Casey Kasem. And one time I ran into Carrie Kasem, who's a friend and sometimes does work over at KABC. And I said, what's the deal with Robert Blake moving in with your dad? And she said, my dad was out of it at that point in time, and it was his crazy wife who invited him in because she was a conspiracy theorist. So Robert Blake moved in with the Kasems. That's so weird. Hey, that should have been a sitcom. We got to, we get the writers back to writing, and keep SAG-AFTRA from striking. Yeah, we got to make that a sitcom. That's great. I love that.
And last thing before you go, Joe, it looks like Donald Trump is pulling away in the Republican primary. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who a lot of people thought would be a very strong candidate this time around, is not polling well. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, say what you will about Trump, but, I watched his South Carolina rally a week or so ago, and there is no politician that I know, and maybe you don't even like him, but, I mean, you got to say one thing. I mean, there is no person I've ever seen that can hold a crowd like Trump. There's nobody that's even close. No, and I like Ron DeSantis, too. And I'm not looking for some kind of, ridiculously fascinating person to be president. I just want a chief executive. But, so I'd be fine with DeSantis. But I just think that Trump and all of this harassment he's getting from the DOJ and all this, I think people are beginning to look at him. I mean, they're making him be this guy, and people are liking him. And if you're Ann Coulter, you think that's on purpose because they think he can't win in the general, so they're propping him up because they think they can beat him.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people thought that his polling would go up after he was indicted, but it looks like everyone's circling the wagons, and he now believes that the indictment is helping him, and that's certainly all being reflected in the polling.
Right, they're turning him into a martyr, and I was also thinking about it too. All the stuff on Trump is always the same kind of stuff. He's a Russian agent. He's in bed with the Russians. He on this one with these documents. He's supposedly going to show them to the Saudis, and he's some sort of a traitor to the United States. It's always the same thing. He's a traitor. And he can't be trusted. And I think people have, there's a lot of people who have gotten sick of it, and I think they're turning him into somewhat of a martyr, and they're putting him in the press's eye. They're keeping him alive. And again, if you're a conspiracy theory, you're thinking, well, they're doing that because they can beat him in the general and DeSantis might actually win. I'm not sure that's true yet. I think everybody plays games with polls. But, it's very clear that Trump is way out in front when it comes to the first debate, which is coming up, which is going to be moderated by Tucker. I just saw that. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
Yep, it just broke a few minutes ago. Tucker is going to be the moderator on the first GOP debate. I think that is in August.
Okay. Well, we'll all be watching that. Joe Crummey, host of the Evil Thoughts podcast. You can get him online at joecrummey.com. You can download the podcast wherever you download your favorite podcasts. And, of course, follow him on Twitter at Joe Crummey. Joe Crummey, thanks so much for stopping by. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, John. Same here.
Absolutely. Joe Crummey always makes me crack up. If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, even though the show ends at 3, if you want to keep listening to us, that's easy to do.
That's right. Go to KBC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe, and then you could be listening to us live from noon to 3, and then you can listen to us on tape from 3 till noon. In fact, it's like getting the show on.
I receive things on both ends.
And who doesn't want us that way? Morning, noon, and night.
But it just didn't feel big enough.
Randy, billionaires are a different breed than you and I. They have different problems, They have different desires. Different things get them excited, and different things get them sad. I guess when you have so much money that you don't have to wake up the next morning and go to work to pay your bills, different motivations spark you to do things. And frequently what happens with these billionaires, and I don't know why, if you're a billionaire, you would want to be competitive with other billionaires because you won the game. If I was a billionaire, I wouldn't be running for public office. I wouldn't be trying to give interviews on television and expose myself to liability. I'd be hanging out on the beach somewhere enjoying my money. Because at that point, the world is your oyster.
Instead, in fact, you got multiple billionaires building rockets in a tribute to their manhood.
That's right. We have an affiliate in Dallas, WBAP. And whenever I'm in Dallas, I do the show from our sister station. They're kind enough to host me. And one of the first things you see when you do the show from downtown Dallas is the American Airlines Arena there. And there are certain buildings that have a great view of the arena and the downtown skyline. And there are certain buildings that are totally blocked and you can't see anything. And I remember one time asking one of the sales guys there, what's the deal? Why is it that some of these buildings are totally boxed in? There's a great view. Why wouldn't you want a view? And they said, it's not that they didn't want a view. It's that we had two rival billionaires in downtown Dallas who hated one another and bought buildings and bought land so that they could purposely block the other's views.
That is very Dallas.
And it was Mark Cuban and H. Ross Perot. They had all the money in the world, could do whatever they want, and they chose to fight with one another over what the other one would be looking at out their office window. Most recently, we've seen a couple of billionaires going at it on social media and other places over their warring social media companies. Elon Musk, who owns Twitter, has been going at it with Mark Zuckerberg, who owns Meta, which is Facebook and I think Instagram. Is that correct?
And the hot new Threads.
Okay. So it all started out with them challenging one another to an MMA-style fight in the octagon. And then each of them was posting photos of them, I guess, at their dojo, where they were learning how to fight from some sensei. Again, you have all the money in the world, and you're spending your money sending yourself to karate class so you could go fight another billionaire.
Some of these people have a desperate need to be liked.
Think about the types of celebrities. Remember when they used to have those celebrity boxing matches, and then all of a sudden, you haven't heard from Todd Bridges in 15 years, and then all of a sudden he's unearthed so he can go fight someone.
It's pretty much how Danny Bonaducci made a career until he got back into radio.
Isn't that what Screech did, too, from Saved by the Bell?
When he wasn't doing porn.
Okay. So you have people who used to be someone who found a way to get back on television by fighting some other has-been in an octagon. They have nothing. They spent all their money. They probably don't have first and last month's rent to get an apartment in a bad part. And they're doing this because these are the crumbs of relevancy that they have left. And billionaires are behaving exactly like them. Whoever thought billionaires would act like Screech? Did you ever think you'd see the day?
With this new crop of billionaires, yes.
Okay. So then Mae Musk, who is Elon Musk's mother, got in on the action when it looked like an MMA-style fight might actually happen between the two of them. And she didn't want him to get hurt, and she probably also didn't want him to humiliate himself on pay-per-view. Imagine watching that fight over at Buffalo Wild Wings. So she suggested that instead of having a fight, they should have a battle of wits. Which, if you're doing it at one of these celebrity roasts, I guess it's one thing if Lisa Lampanelli is up on the dais. But if you have two engineers involved in a battle of wits, that doesn't seem like it would keep anyone's attention. So they figured, all right, we got the idea. She doesn't want us to fight physically, so we have to find another way to be in competition with one another that would involve one of us being humiliated publicly. So have you seen the latest chapter in this battle, Randy?
Oh, no. What's happening now?
This just crossed the wires. This is being reported by the New York Post. Elon Musk has officially challenged Mark Zuckerberg to a Richard measuring contest. He literally wants to measure them and put the number out in the public domain as the contest.
Elon Musk is the only person that you look at and wonder, how can someone so smart be so dumb?
You're a billionaire, for heaven's sakes. A billionaire. You could go buy an island. You're shooting rockets into outer space. And now you want to be involved in a Richard measuring contest with another billionaire.
You know, people used to really respect Elon Musk when he was just digging the tunnel under the 405 and building the rockets and building the Teslas. And he was just this mysterious inventor. As soon as he started opening his mouth, oh, boy.
Well, it's not like Mark Zuckerberg is above it. He takes the bait every time.
It's harder to go after him because he doesn't seem like an actual human.
That's right. He does look like a cyborg.
I'm pretty sure that is the AI.
According to the New York Post, we're awaiting a response from Mark Zuckerberg, but who knows? This may be the new contest between the two billionaires, so stay tuned. Randy, we have some breaking newspaper news.
That's right. It deserves the breaking news sounder.
Now, breaking on AM 790 KABC.
The owner of the LA Times, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, who also owns the San Diego Union Tribune, just sold the San Diego Union Tribune.
And according to the Orange County Register, I'm going to read to you what the OC Register, which is my newspaper, where my column appears, what they just tweeted. LA billionaire sells San Diego Union Tribune to owner of Southern California News Group. So that means, I guess, my paper bought their paper.
Yes, the majority owner of Southern California News Group has bought the San Diego Union Tribune from Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong for an undisclosed amount. But I bet it was a lot of money.
Now, when I first started out as a columnist at the OC Register, we were a standalone paper. And then we bought the Riverside Press Enterprise, and then my column started appearing in both papers. And then SoCal News Group bought us, and then my column started appearing in the LA Daily News, the Riverside Press Enterprise, the Whittier Daily News, San Gabriel Valley Union Tribune, and most importantly, Randy,
the Redlands Daily Facts.
So I wonder if my column is going to start running in the San Diego Union Tribune, too.
It could happen.
I guess it's possible.
Good for San Diego. Any way to get that paper out of Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong's hands is a good thing.
I just texted my boss over there, so stay tuned.